What's up, guys? Crypto Coffee here. Today we're going to be talking about the question that everybody wants to know. Is Bitcoin in a bubble? And is all of cryptocurrency in a bubble? Is everything in a bubble? Stick around to the end of the video because we're going to talk all about whether or not cryptocurrency is in a bubble and whether or not that matters to you right now as a potential investor, Now, the thing to realize about asking that question at all is you have to define what a bubble means. So really simply put, a bubble in anything, whether that's stock market, real estate, cryptocurrency, whatever, it's pretty simple. It just means that a lot of people are buying into something really, really fast, and it pushes the price way up, but it happens so fast that it's not sustainable, and a bunch of investors sell or take profit because things went up so fast that all of a sudden, they're thinking that whatever they just purchased is not really actually worth that much, and they just sell. So it's really simply put just people buying and selling. There's really not much more to it. It's just that the buying and selling occurs in such a drastic and compressed time period that it results in a big price swing up and a big price swing back down. So because of this, in markets, you have price fluctuation all the time. And if you look on a longer term time scale of anything, you could kind of say that, well, everything is pretty much in a bubble, right? And we also refer to these as bullish periods and bearish periods. When things are going up, it's bullish. It's the beginning of the bubble. And then when things are going down and bearish, you could also consider that the bubble popping. So I think the real question that people are asking when they're asking, is cryptocurrency in a bubble, is basically, if I buy this, is it going to go down right after I buy it? And that's kind of the question you should be asking, because quite frankly, if you look at everything, whether that's stocks, commodities, whatever, right now we're in the everything bubble. The government is printing more money than they've ever printed before, unprecedented levels. 30% or more of the entire money supply in existence has been printed in the past year alone. And this is to do stuff like relieve the current economic situation with quantitative easing and all that stuff. But there's so much money floating around in this market because the government just keeps printing it. And so, typically in more conservative time periods, we say cash is king. Well, in this scenario, we're actually saying that cash is trash. And so when they're printing money like this, that means your dollar is being devalued every day. So the way I look at it is that if they're printing more and more money and the dollar is being devalued, this is the time where cash is trash and assets are actually king. So in times like this, I'd recommend putting your money in financial assets, and my favorite happens to be cryptocurrency because it's the bubble that rises the most, right? Stocks are probably going to go up and do just fine, but I think crypto is going to do even better in the next few years. And again, this is not financial advice. This is just my opinion for anybody asking the question, is cryptocurrency in a bubble? So what you see in front of you is the Bitcoin chart, which is the oldest chart that we have in cryptocurrency. Because Bitcoin is the oldest crypto, and it goes back to about 12 years now, from 2009 all the way to 2021. And you could see, if you watch my last video, I talk about how Bitcoin kind of grows in these bubble-like phases. And it's pretty self-evident on the chart here that every bubble that peaks and dips is getting longer, so they're getting more and more stretched out, and every bubble is also getting shorter and shorter in amplitude. So it kind of goes like this. And the reason for that is because, every bubble that happens, there's more and more money now in this system, now in this ecosystem. So it takes more and more economic energy to push that price up over time. And so you'll see the Bitcoin bubbles getting longer and lowering in amplitude each cycle. And so Bitcoin's been through 4 bubble cycles already, right? So the answer to, is Bitcoin in a bubble? Well, the short answer and the easy answer is yes. But the more nuanced answer is that everything is in a bubble. And the question isn't so much, are we in a bubble? It's when should we buy, right? Now, if you look over in the early days, the first bubble went from, a penny per Bitcoin all the way up to about $30. And it crashed all the way down to $1.85, about $2. So that was the first bubble, right? But did Bitcoin die after that? No, Bitcoin continued to grow. So it grew all the way from $2 up into about $1,200. And that was when China was buying it and all this crazy stuff was going on. And then from there it fell all the way back down to about $150. So that was bubble number 2. Bubble number 3, it went all the way up to $20,000 in 2017, and then all the way back down to $3,000 in 2018. So these are some very drastic moves, and so if you're going to get into cryptocurrency, all I'm trying to say is that the people that bought at a penny and never sold, they were heavily rewarded. If you put in $1 at a penny and you held till $20,000, you'd have $2 million today for an investment of only one initial dollar. Now that's crazy. The price that you pay for that kind of potential is extreme volatility, right? Let me say that again. The price that you pay for this bubble-like cycle and this crazy high potential for price growth is extreme volatility. So you need to ask yourself, are you okay, and would you be okay if the investment that you bought today dipped 70 to 80%? And that's the kind of attitude that you have to have in crypto. So with high risk comes very high reward, right? But now just from a timing perspective, because again, like I said, the real question is not if we're in a bubble. Everything is in bubbles. It goes through cycles of upturns and downturns. But the real question is when to buy. Am I too late to buy cryptocurrency? Well, if you'll notice, every time Bitcoin has broken its all-time high of the previous cycle, for example, when it went to 30 and down to $2 and back up to 30, it didn't just make a double top, it blew right through those levels. And that happened again at 1200. 1200 down to 200, back up to 1200, but did it just bounce off and keep going down forever? No, it blew right through to make new all-time highs. Then it went down to 3,000, and now what we just recently saw is when it went back up to its recent all-time high of $20,000, it just blew right past it and went all the way up to $40,000. So double tops in cryptocurrency are very unlikely because so many people are being onboarded and adopted into this ecosystem. And the fact that cycles are getting longer and that Bitcoin has just broke its all-time high no more than 2 months ago, in fact, I believe only about 5 or 6 weeks ago at this current time, means that it's still very early in the bull cycle, in my opinion. Again, not financial advice, but I believe that the answer to the question, are we in a bubble, is yes, but that bubble is just getting started. Now, another thing you'll need to ask yourself too is, is Bitcoin still worth buying when it's so expensive? And that's actually a very valid question, right? At 1 penny, it took very little economic energy and volume to push all the way up to $30. But that's also a huge increase. That's a 300,000% increase. And you'll notice that the amount of gains that we get, which means this big up arrow on every cycle, this up arrow is getting lower and lower, and that's because we're on the 4th cycle now. And it takes so much new money to come in to push that price up. So if you've seen my last video, I'll post that above, you'll see my price prediction for the next top of the bull cycle is only about under $100,000. And I would love it to go higher, but it will be very hard to achieve levels over $100,000. And so you're not going to make those crazy 1 penny to $30 type returns, because you got to think in percentages here. If you put in $100, you're not going to get a 300,000% return. In fact, it's much more likely you might be lucky to double or triple, maybe even 4x your money, and that's still great, right? That's still amazing. But personally, I got into cryptocurrency for the high risk, high reward type of attitude. And at this point in Bitcoin's life cycle, it's been around for so long that I just don't personally see the potential for gains to be as high as it once was. So again, I think Bitcoin's going to do just fine. And if you're going to get into cryptocurrency, it probably would not hurt to buy Bitcoin. It's a good starting point. But there are newer currencies like Ethereum and like Hex that have much more upside potential. And part of the reason is twofold, right? They're younger coins and they haven't had as many cycles yet. They haven't had as many bubbles. So Ethereum came along at around 2014, and that's right about as Bitcoin was entering its second big bubble. But Ethereum itself has really only been around for one big bubble. And so I predict that due to this fact and the fact that Ethereum hasn't even broken its all-time high of $1,400, means that it's actually a much better speculative play to get into risk-reward wise. And on top of all this, you can invest in my favorite digital asset, which is actually this new one called Hex, right? So Ethereum is also a great starting point, entryway into the cryptocurrency realm. It's a little bit risky, but it's still been around for 7 years. Hex has been around for only 1 year. And so, just like in Bitcoin's early days, if you bought Bitcoin in the first year, you would have done very well for yourself. So there's different levels of risk and there's different options that you have when getting into crypto. Bitcoin is safe. You might get a 3x out of it. You'd be lucky to get a 6x or very lucky to get a 10x. Ethereum, I think, is going to do very, very well in this next cycle. I can see it doing a 10x automatically. And when I say 10x, I mean a multiple of 10. So you put in $100, you might get $1,000. Put in $1,000, you might get $10,000. And I'm saying might because nobody obviously knows what's going to happen. But for Hex, this thing is still in its infancy, and this is a kind of the third innovation in the cryptocurrency space. So if Bitcoin is kind of like the digital gold, and Ethereum is the digital oil, I like to say, because coins can be built on top of Ethereum, well, Hex is a coin that runs on top of Ethereum, and it aims to be a digital CD, certificate of deposit. Right, so if we're trying to replace all the products at a bank, and we all know the banks are corrupt, and we don't like the middlemen at all, well, doesn't it seem logical that the first thing that you should program on top of Ethereum, if you're given programmable money, is an interest-bearing cryptocurrency, and the second most popular product at a bank, which is the CD? So Hex is really the next logical step. We've got digital gold / savings account, that's Bitcoin, but now we've got digital decentralized trustless interest, which is called Hex. And again, that's built on top of the Ethereum substrate layer, which is kind of like the fuel, or again, the digital oil that's powering the ecosystem. So for those that don't know, Ethereum is just a blockchain that allows people to build different cryptocurrencies on top of it. So Hex came along in December 2nd, 2019, and you could see it's had quite a tumultuous year, right? It's been going up and down, and kind of just like Bitcoin, it's been through these cycles, right? Where it went down 80%, bounced back higher. Down 70%, bounced back way higher that time. Down 60%, bounced back higher. Down 85%, and just recently hit an all-time high. And now it's kind of trickling off a little bit. But what I'm trying to say, guys, is that these dips are buying opportunities in cryptocurrency. And if you're asking yourself, is this in a bubble? The answer will always be yes. The real question is, what phase are you of the bubble? How early are you in on this? Because if you bought Hex at the absolute low, and you held it, and you had the strong hands to hold it through all these dips, right? It's not easy emotionally, but this is crypto, right? High risk. With high risk comes high reward. And if you bought that low, you would still be up about 140 times on your money in this year alone. And think about, that's only 1 year. If you are willing to hold a cryptocurrency for the length of time that Bitcoin has been around, and Hex isn't going anywhere, right? It's triple audited, secure, and it's got a great community behind it. It's not going to die, right? So if you believe in this thing for the long term, think about the potential there, guys. 140x in the first year alone, and just think about extrapolating that to 2 years, 5 years, even 10 years from now. So to me, this is the most exciting thing to be into. And I won't lie, personally, I've invested in Bitcoin and Ethereum in the past, but Hex is the newest, coolest, most interesting thing to me right now because of its long-term potential. And I go over some of the reasons that I think it's going to be around for such a long term in my other videos, but it really has to do with the length of time that people are staking their Hex. And so people are voting with their actions that they're believing in the Hex for such a long period of time that it averages out to a weighted average of about 5 years. And some people have stakes all the way up to 15 years in the future. And that's longer than Bitcoin has ever existed. So I think a lot of people right now are betting on this one to be around for the long haul. And, the day-to-day price movements are not really such a big deal because Hex is one of those things that, like I said, it's a digital CD, so it pays you interest, right? By staking, if you lock up your Hex, it'll pay you more Hex over time. And that can actually help you hold through all these crazy dips because you know that every time it dips, you're still making that interest. The smart contract on Ethereum is still minting you more trustless interest paid in Hex. So to sum it all up, is cryptocurrency in a bubble? Yes. Is everything in a bubble? Yes, we're in the everything bubble. But in the everything bubble, I'd like to be in the highest appreciating asset class of all time. And within that, there's different levels of risk, right? So I would classify Bitcoin as low risk. It's been around for a while, but low risk, lower reward. Ethereum, mid risk, mid reward. And Hex, well, you can call it high risk, Very, very high reward. But you know, the definition of risk is relative to everyone. Someone like me that's done their research, I perceive this as a low risk thing, although I can understand how coming in and only being a year old, you should be skeptical of anything. So always do your own research, and if this is appealing to you, check out the links in my description below. If you want to get started with Ethereum and Hex today, you can download the new Staker app. It's a one-stop shop for all of your cryptocurrency needs. You can turn your dollars, your money, you know, pounds, euros, whatever it might be, directly into Ethereum or directly into Hex, and you can start staking today to be making that interest and to ride this next bubble all the way to the top, and then all the way back down, and then all the way to the top again, then all the way back down. That's the game of crypto that we're playing, guys, so I hope that clears things up. It's not for the faint of heart, but it does allow people financial freedom, and it has made millions truly wealthy. Hope this was helpful. I'll talk to you guys on the next one.